sheet newspapers who have agendas. And they're not nice
That's
agendas.
a problem. Everybody seems to have an agenda.
Yeah, but I mean, someone made the point that if you have a book and you serialise it in one newspaper, all the others will have a go at you. Yeah. Because they don't have the rights. And
well, they're having a go.
That's life in the
having
newspaper
goes
business.
at Mick McCarthy, having goes at the FAI, depending on their agenda, having goes at Roy Keane, having goes at Eamonn Dunphy.
Okay,
having goes at everybody in turn.
Talk to, yes.
I'm a national coach of a small sport called water polo. Like, I coach the kids up to under 16, under 20. Now, every trip that we go away on, the kids have to pay. They had to buy their own togs, buy their own T-shirts, pay for everything. They get some grants, but very little. Yeah. I've had kids who've had to do door-to-door collections, go to shops, factories, everything to try and raise money.
To Roy Keane?
Yeah. I look at him and I see him over there being paid in the lap of luxury, and he walks away from. He's captain of the Irish team and he's willing to walk away from it. He says he's walking away and then he decides to come back, but he's given up after the World Cup. It's very hard. I think he's let every sportsman down in this country.
Okay, we'll go for before we go back to the lads here. Yes, what do you want to say? Yeah.
Sean Reid, Irish Football Supporters Association. I feel that Roy Keane is being portrayed here today by these two men up here on your panel as a hero. In my opinion, he's a traitor to the country. He didn't support his country when we needed him.
Okay, over here, yes, the young woman there in black. What do you want to say to us?
Pat, I just want to say, this scenario was going on since Saipan. People are really, really sick of it at this stage. The Irish football players did a great job, an absolutely brilliant job without Roy Keane. At this stage of the game, I don't think Roy Keane should even be considered to be brought back into the team.
Okay, Jimmy Magee, you want to respond to that?
I most certainly do. I want to reply to the man up 1, 2, 3, 4 rows up who says that we were making him a hero. I am not making him a hero, believe me. I'm not carrying any torch for Roy Keane.
But you're not saying anything bad about him.
Let me finish, please. I didn't interrupt you. If Roy Keane, one of the great things he has for Manchester United and up to recently for Ireland was this drive, this engine he has. But he constantly is giving out to, not exactly cajoling, but giving out to his fellow players. And as the football pitch is his workplace, if he were to do that sort of thing in the general workplace, it would be construed as bullying. If that's calling him a hero, that's another side.
Okay, over here, yes. So with your hand up there, go on, what do you want to say?
How are you, Pat? I'd just like to say how are you, and read the book. I thought it was a great read, to be honest. And I'd like to ask, Ronaldo in the last World Cup was a zombie in the final. Raúl, if believed, doesn't even speak to his coach. How many other countries do you think would send Roy Keane home if they had him? And a lot of countries would be glad to have him in their squad.
Okay. I want to ask Eamonn a couple of things, because the book is fascinating, because Roy says loads of things and you retell them. For instance, he talks about a semi-final against Crystal Palace, and he says they play the Charlton way, long ball and chase it. And he says that can be very hard to play against. Now, that was always what Charlton said.
Yes.
So you wonder, okay, what was wrong? Charlton had one way of doing it. It was one man's way. It wasn't every man's way, but it was his way of doing it. Then later in the book he says, to give McCarthy his due, he let us play football. And yet these two guys are, tossers in his mind as well.
I think you see, if you read the book and if you know Roy Keane, he's a tough-minded man, which is good. But he's also fair. I mean, he tells nice stories about Jack, the way Jack protected Paul McGrath.
Yeah.
He talks about them singing in the bus about, we love you, Jackie, we do, we like to get a
drink, yeah.
I mean, there's a gentle and humorous, there's a lot of humour in the book.
And he also says that the carry-on style of the Irish camp led to a team spirit. Now, there are people at the time who would have said that we were greater than the sum of the parts at the time because of the team spirit. So different strokes for different folks, the way they manage. And McCarthy lets them play football, maybe tactically, team selection, he mightn't do what Roy wants him to do. But for heaven's sake, it has worked for McCarthy this last while, you know.
Yes, but there are nuances in the book, as you point out. It's not a one man saying, I was right, I was right. It's nuanced.
He also says,
Jack is not all bad, Mick McCarthy's not all bad. But at the end of the day, in the final analysis, the bad relationship between him and McCarthy came out. He believes that he was let down, and I believe he was very badly let down. See, this man is trying to break a mould, Pat. The mould has been there going back to Sweden 32 years ago. He's trying to break the mould, not just with Ireland, at Manchester United elsewhere, with the complacency. He's trying to do things differently. He's a difficult man. Danny Blanchflower was a difficult man. All the great people in sport. Lester Pickett was a difficult man if you looked at him a certain way. The people who want to change things and want to do things are difficult.
But you know the way he
sometimes.
says, like, he says things about McCarthy now, you know, he never worked for him, let him rot in hell and all that in the Observer interview. I think he repeats it in the GQ interview as well. But he says about Teddy Sheringham, for instance, in the book, didn't really get on with him, but that didn't stop us doing the business on the pitch. And we all work with people that we don't particularly get on with. I mean, you and Gilesy at the moment are having some sort of a disagreement, you having called him a hypocrite.
I'm not going out with him anymore.
You're not going out with him anymore. But you still will sit in the Premiership studio tomorrow and do business with him, right?
We'll see.
Yeah.
You know, we all have to do that, and you just wonder why Roy can't just get on with it.
I'll tell you why. Because you're a professional, you're at the top of the tree. If you walked in here tonight and the lights weren't working and the cameras weren't working, one night you'd put up with it. If you'd put up with it for 10 years, you just wouldn't do it. You'd kick ass. That's what you do, Pat, I think.
Well,
Even you, Pat. Nice Pat.
I'm just thinking, Eamonn, that if they said to me, you're going to go live, you're interviewing the Pope, and we've only got a candle to light the pair of you, I'd do it. And for me, that might be the same as the World Cup for Roy. I'd give my heart to do an interview with the Pope. So if I got that opportunity, and for him, that's the World
isn't
Cup.
it an amazing story, the way it's evolved?
If I just say this to you,
Yes,
I think people who wonder why he didn't persevere in the World Cup are right to wonder. I do. Because the goal was so great. But if you read the full story, then you see the trail that led to Saipan. And it went back a long way.
You described on the Premiership last Saturday Niall Quinn's kind of cack-handed way of going over. Now it turns out that they'd agreed to shake hands. That was Michael Kennedy had brokered a public handshake, which might have gone some way. Now, Niall decided to go ahead with it. It was the wrong moment given what Roy was going through.
Because it was a premature curtain.
It was a premature curtain, and he knew he'd be sucked into the Man United machine and be gone. He wouldn't get a chance to do it. But obviously something was afoot. I mean, is it all gone too far? Is it all too late? Or, you know, with first-class travel, with the pasta, the fish and the steak and all the rest of it, with their bags being checked in for them properly, is it possible that, you know, we can all come back from the brink?
Yeah, it would be nice if that could happen. I really think it would be nice. And I was thinking this afternoon about all of the collateral damage that's come.
And you read mixed comments, I presume, from
I did
Moscow.
read them, yes.
Very conciliatory.
I think everybody is sad about what's happened. And it would be nice if we could wind it back. The only thing I'd say, Pat, is that sometimes, as with John and I, and Roy and Steve Staunton, who was a good pal of his, Niall Quinn, they had a drink, they were pals. Sometimes there's a moment that can test a friendship or a situation, and we appear to have reached such a moment. But I would certainly wish that none of this had happened. It hasn't been good for Roy, it hasn't been good for Irish soccer, it hasn't been good for me personally, it hasn't been good for anybody really.
Yeah, if you could wind the clock back, would you say to them, you know, Roy, don't do the book now?
But forget about winding the clock back. May I interrupt? Forget about winding the clock back. That's now impossible. The clock is where it is, and there's the present and there's the future. And in an island, or on an island, where we're always talking about peace moves and peace motives, isn't it about time that men of influence, with, for instance, Roy Keane, that Eamonn will go to Roy? Now, the book has got amazing publicity, and fair play to the lads. Great publicity. And like the lady up here, maybe everybody's getting a bit tired of it now, but it's reached saturation point almost. Now, here I'm contributing to it tonight, but I'm kind of here reluctantly, with all due respects to you and the Late Late Show, but in the circumstances, if you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean.
But I would like to see people like Eamonn, ombudsman, who might be respected by Roy and Mick and somebody, getting these people together. Because a man with the ability of Keane, now forget outbursts and tirades and language and bad language and Alfie Holland and Saipan. It's past tense. A man with his ability and his, now he's 31, he won't play when he's 41. Let this man get back into the Ireland team, back into the mainstream, where really a talent like that deserves to be. And it's about time that everybody grew up in a certain sense and let wise counsel prevail. That would be my final word on that.
All right. Well, I don't know who the honest broker is, because I'm not sure, Eamonn, that you'd be welcome inside McCarthy's tent to be the honest broker.
Well, I'm prepared to do it.
You're prepared to do it, James.
If I'm
I think
acceptable.
you would be acceptable to all parties. Yeah? And I mean, I've said I've met Roy privately, spending an hour or two in his company after shows, and you see that he is a decent, gentle man, when he's not driven on the,
but not faultless.
on the pitch. Not faultless, no, but who is?
Yeah. Not faultless.
Besides Eamonn.
No. I mean, I'm a warrior, Pat, and I fight to the last ditch, and so will Roy Keane. But I do feel that this is hurting too much for everybody, and most of all, in my view, it's hurting for Roy. And what happened last Saturday is an indication of that. And no book or no lack of facility, nothing should cause this kind of collateral damage. But if we got to fight, we've got to fight. But everyone needs to be big enough, and that includes Mick McCarthy and Roy and everyone else, big enough to see that no one is benefiting from this at this stage. And it isn't giving a good example to kids.
No, that's for sure.
And I don't mean Roy Keane's behaviour, just all of our behaviour, me included.
Well,
I mean, we have
young
to
man who
stop
wrote to all the
fighting at
clubs
some
looking for a
stage.
trial when he was at Rockmantle, when he was at Cove, looking for trials. A young man, he wanted to do these sort of things. But my own son now was trying to be a footballer. In fact, he played under the coaching of Eamonn Dunphy at Shamrock Rovers one time. But I'll tell you one thing, if he conducted himself with language like that, with that sort of venom against Eamonn or Giles or whoever was there at the time, I would kind of disown him too. I'm not an apologist, as that man up there seems to suggest, seems hours ago. But I can see the good in him, and I can see the weaknesses in him, and like the rest of us, he's vulnerable in this world. So I'm prepared. If I was to come pro anybody, I'd be pro Roy Keane. He's been very kind and cooperative to me in the past.
All right, we'll leave it there. Eamonn Dunphy, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Now,